Well, hello everyone. Hope everybody's doing well. Welcome to WineShark Wednesday, ladies and gentlemen. It is I, your host, the WineShark. Thank you for coming back to visit. Took last week off for a sort of planning session on an upcoming project we're going to talk about. But anyway, things have been well here in WineShark Land. Had some fun events. We finished up the spring fling down at Reunion Tower. So thank you to all my guests who came out to join us for there. We did some nice light, easy to drink wines for the nice new light spring weather. Here it's actually getting it's gotten moderately warm today here in North Texas. I've had the windows open all week and letting the air flow through, but had to actually, close the windows so you guys don't hear the traffic as much that lives outside my window. But yeah, so it's been good. We'll talk a little bit about what's been going on, what's upcoming. Um, Upcoming is actually much more than what's been going on. I'll tell you more about the Texas planning tour at the end of the show, um, and some interesting developments with that. So, but we do have some upcoming events. Hope you guys will join us for later in this week. We're going to do Wine and Cheese Part 9, which is just a fun wine and cheese show. Our usual favorite pairings: 2 wines, 4 cheeses, and some good discussion on the matchings thereof. This time using some styles we had a chance to try before wine wise. Same thing with the cheese. I went with some examples that match those. So details are on Eventbrite. That's on 26 March in just 2 days. Then I got the schedule up for the rest of April. So I've been doing a lot of monkeying with that. That's part of the planning process. So we've got white dessert wines coming up on April 15th. Note that that is a Thursday show, and it will be Thursday at 6 rather than Friday at 7 p.m. So adjust your brains accordingly. Same thing for later that month. 2 weeks after that, on 29 April, we'll do Will It Blend Part 3 Bordeaux. So we'll be going to Bordeaux and trying some of their blends from there. But both of those shows are Thursday shows for the online show, which is a bit different than our usual pattern, so be advised. Then we have another live show on 16 April. Old World Wines down at Reunion Tower. So tickets are already half sold out for that. So if you're going to attend, I recommend getting them in early. It will sell out. Then starting on April 10th, we'll begin at Scarborough Renaissance Festival as well. So we're excited about the upcoming season there. So good stuff. I want to say hello. So let's see David Mary are saying hello. Miss Donna, Rich Joe Nash up from the mountains. Great to see you guys again. Well, yeah. So today we're going to be talking about open-minded wine drinking. I've been thinking a bunch, and one of the things that, just to prelude this whole thing, I took last week off to do some planning for an upcoming Texas wine tour. We're getting to a point where you can do at least some moderate traveling. Everybody's getting vaccinated. Things are getting back to not quite normal yet, but we're still helping out with all of our COVID safety. But we're going to go down to Fredericksburg and try some wines for a few different reasons. One of the fact is we've got David Mary for coming down from Minnesota. Some of our Patreons are going to be in the area, and we'd love to drink some wine with them. They usually go out to hang out during the week during their visit there to go try out some wineries. So we thought we would join them. Some of our other patrons, Carrie and Rob Hamlet, are going to join us. So we're going to have a good little micro fun down there. But really, my purpose down there is going to be to look at Texas wine and where it's come. And what is possible for a wine tour potentially down there, and how it would function, where I would take people. Because one of the things that I'm not going to do is I don't take people on tours to places that I don't know and that I don't trust. And unfortunately, one of the things that is an example of that I don't know and I don't trust a lot is Texas wine. I've had a lot of experience with Texas wine over the past years, but I found myself reflecting upon that my opinions had been, have a lot has gone on in the wine world. And so we're going to frame that as the background reason for this particular show. So one of the things my pet peeve in the wine world is close-minded wine drinkers. It's just a personal thing that kind of drives me up a wall because it creates barriers instead of breaking them down. So a common form that people see, most common form I think that most people encounter with this is the fraudulent sense of superiority. Right? I mean, yours truly's words here. This is definitely an opinion piece. This is the I only drink crowd, or anything but that crowd. For whatever reason, whether it's some sort of brand superiority, region superiority, style superiority, whatever the hell it is, that people don't, or they've had a negative experience with a wine and therefore think all wines of that type are awful and therefore they'll drink anything except that one thing. This is a really narrow way of looking at the world of wine, and like a kind of, again, there's going to be a lot of life pro tips in here. Life pro tip: if be for something instead of just against everything. Or even if the I only drink crowd is definitely for something, they're really for only that one thing. And I think that this is a thing that gets wine a bad reputation, where people think it's snobby and elite and hard to approach because people want to form strong wine opinions and look down and their nose at other people's wine choices. These are the people that are they're definitely on the idea of that wine's a luxury rather than a grocery, right? Whereas my personal opinion is it can easily be both. So that's one thing. The other example of closed-minded wine drinkers is the parrot syndrome, the wine parrot, as I call it. And these are people that repeat information that they've heard, that they've been told, that they've read on the internet, they've been marketed to, that is inaccurate and usually disparaging towards something this, that, or other in the world of wine. We talked about this a lot, and the fear-based marketing that comes along with like the clean wine movement, the wellness market, anything that can make you feel like you're doing better by avoiding some magic thing that is wine. This is the thing where they demonize sulfites, or hey, look, this wine is low carb because clearly you're living a low carb lifestyle. To use It's all about marketing words and angles in this, or simply the fact of people repeating things that aren't they have a personal experience with, but aren't necessarily very accurate. For instance, you know, I heard it again just about 2 weeks ago. In fact, at the Spring Fling show, somebody talked about sugar and wine causing hangovers, and I'm like, there's no foundation for that. That's a line in a Tom Cruise movie where he becomes a bartender, gets his heart broken, and moves to the tropics. Okay, that's the idea of sugar having any cause about your hangover is usually more likely to the fact that sweet drinks make you drink more. We want to point to anything but our own responsibility when it comes to hangovers. And in fact, there's a whole market around that sort of nonsense. Oh, put these drops in your wine and you won't get hangovers, or drink this brand or this filter, or this, hangovers are caused by impurities. Dude, the impurity that it's caused is by your impurity of self-control. Just take fucking responsibility and do it, okay? So anyway, that whole idea of misinformation, wine parroting is really a big negative, and it's something that I'm constantly championing against. We use the example of the wellness market. For instance, so there's a new wine that comes out, and let's say that it's branded as low calorie, it's branded as keto friendly, low carbohydrate, vegan, and completely, good for you in all ways, shapes, and forms. Well, the other way to put those things in perspective is the reason that the wines are low carb and lower calorie is because they are lower in alcohol and lower in sugar. If you had a wine label that said low alcohol diet wine, would that be nearly as attractive to you? Because that's exactly what those words mean. Wines that are dry have no sugar in them anyway. Wines that are lower in alcohol don't tend to be attractive to most people. So think through what it is you're being sold, and ask who stands to benefit, and why is this just getting invented in the 4,000 years of winemaking, in the last 200-300 years of modern winemaking. Okay. And then lastly, there's some folks that have a personal desire to be special because of something in their wine diet. This is kind of that whole pay attention to my condition kind of crowd, right? I am allergic to a grape is one that I've heard more than a few times, and I'm like, dude, the genetic qualities of that grape to this grape that control those things are not the reason you have an allergic reaction. Once again, things like allergies, or their gluten intolerance, or if you again, life pro tip here: if your condition defines you, that's not a good thing. Being sensitive or intolerant or allergic isn't a personality choice, okay? Sure, if you're sensitive to something, then avoid it. Don't make a damn big deal of it, and don't act like wine is the source of the problem. Sulfite allergy, for instance. Sulfite gives me headaches. Well, chances are you're going to know about it because of the quantities that are involved are so small in wine compared to a lot of other things you put in your face. But I digress. So these are all the negative things. This is the closed-minded stuff. These are the things that I champion against. But wine is an ever-changing thing. Why that is so important to maintain an open mindset is that there are, three, four big things that I want to talk about that are always changing in the world of wine, and where you cannot form an opinion and stick with it without continuing to live your life. It doesn't stay the same. So number one, save for hyper-marketed wines that homogenize flavors via chemical manipulation, i.e. wines that kind of big brand box wines, things like that, really low end wines that are trying to make sure that their flavor profile always stays the same. Or this also could apply to certain styles of other non-vintage wine. Other than that, the differences in the vintage year, the growing conditions of each year, is going to produce slightly different flavors and tastes in the wine. And I mean, this isn't a bug, this is a feature. It's the reason we put the numbers on the bottle, right? It's the reason that the winemaker's notes will tell you, if they're a good, transparent winemaker, what the conditions were like, what effect they had on the grapes, and how they affected the flavor. It's the reason it's cool to taste the differences in these things. Now, to most people who are not wine experienced, those differences may be too subtle to detect. But when you start getting into wine, you start to appreciate these particular nuances, then they become an interesting new frontier. So, number one, wine is always going to be changing from year to year to year to year. And that means that, you've heard me say this before, wine is a snapshot in time. Even the same bottle now, served a year later, isn't going to be the same bottle, even though nothing has changed in it except the aging time that it's had. And that's the key. Time changes the way it tastes. So that's an important factor. Number two, many wine regions and producers are also in a constant state of change. The urge to do better, be more efficient, be experimental, be exploratory. These are important in very many wine communities. I would say, especially in the new world of wine. In other words, outside of Europe, you have a lot of winemakers in the new world that are anti-traditionalist, that some of them are, while they may be trying to replicate or imitate some of the things that happen in the old world, they're willing to take different steps and non-traditional methods to achieve new goals. And that's a good thing. It's often a friction point, mind you, between tradition and modernity, and the difference between art and science. It's the minimal input people who want to just let everything go wild and do natural wine completely free from, we looked at the grapes once under the light of the full moon and bam, they became wine. Versus people who are very scientifically minded about their very specific, hey, we want to harvest at this Brix and this pH, we had this temperature during fermentation, and we rested it this way, and we use this specific grain of yeast to inoculate it so we get these flavors. There's a lot of science and a lot of art. There's a Venn diagram and where you want to live. That's one of the things that being a winemaker brings to the table, is your ability to choose. So because that change, I mean, even the same area of wine, like 10 years ago, may not be the same or have the same taste or the same winemaking values as they did once upon a time. This is the kind of underpinning idea, as I spoke of earlier, about going down to visit wines and going back to Texas wines and going and revisiting them, because I haven't done so in a long time. Early in my career, I tried a lot of different Texas wines. I formed some opinions about what I liked and what I didn't. But I'll be honest with you, because there's not a lot of things that are in my usual wheelhouse, I don't go back that often. And as a professional, I want to make the effort and share that level of knowledge with you guys. So again, revisiting even something you've done before is worthy in the wine world, because even the places and the names and the producers are in their own state of flux. This again, you may hear very different from people in the old guard. Right? I mean, I'm looking at you, Bordelais and the Bordeaux, right? They are very traditional minded, very hidebound in the way that they do things. Some of them even have laws and rules that restrict such things. But that's people who tend to stick with that being the only thing that's ever going to be good, is a perfect example of how, especially in the art side of the world and including the science side of the world, they will slowly become obsolete. Okay? If you're not going to adapt, you're going to die. That's a simple fact of nature in the wine world too. Then, number three in the reasons of the ever changing awesome, you are changing. I am changing. We've talked about how your palate evolves over time. It not only evolves and changes as you age, with the number of taste buds and your senses of smell, your overall senses changing as you get into your later years, but also your own wine journey and the exposure you get to different types of wine and the opportunities you have to try things will influence how your palate rounds out. How much time and effort you put into this, for instance. Are you somebody who wants to study, know, and get all geeky like moi? Or are you somebody who just wants to get a good buzz on and has something that doesn't taste freaking awful? Well, cool. I'm down with that too. But remember that you are constantly changing. Just because you didn't like X once upon a time doesn't mean that you may not have had a really good sample of all of the X's. Um, this kind of ties into the fourth point, which is grapes are not homogenous or wines are not homogenous. One of the things I've really been harping on in the last 6 months is that in the wine world, there aren't really any rules about how a wine must taste. There are often rules about, especially in the old world, for instance, about the degree of control about the types of grapes you can grow, the way you can irrigate or not irrigate, whether you can bring in natural yeast, you have to use natural yeast or inoculated yeast. There's a lot of regulation, especially in some of the old guard areas of the world, especially when they're higher prestige. But the flip side to that is there's actually nothing that says the wine must taste like so. If you go over to the beer world, when it comes to beer style guides, beers have a very specific flavor definition that comes along with their style. And we don't have that in the wine world. We have it's much more about tradition than anything else. So not only are there no rules about the taste, which means there can and will be variation, the same grapes, I mean, if you took two clusters from the same vine and put them in two different people's hands and produced wine from them, are going to end up with different tasting products because of the winemaker's decisions they make during the process. Double over, you could take different varietals in the different regions, make different tasting wines. An example here is, we talk about, what wines from different parts of the world have different tastes. By the way, this is not a bug, it's a feature. This is the reason that we have this wonderful panoply of wines from regions all over the world. Okay, that is a great thing about wine. Just like it changes from year to year and it ages in the bottle and it's a slice of time moving through time, it's also always going to be different depending on where you are. So, as a wine professional, I am always having to monitor my own bias. I'm really taking an effort to make sure that I don't get stuck in those same ruts, that I don't get stuck in those same opinions, that I give people, meaning winemakers in this case, and producers and wine regions and wine styles, a constant reevaluation as I go through my world, right? And I want you to encourage you guys to do the same thing. So for all of those reasons above, I refocus my affirmation of opinions by trying stuff again, checking my facts again. What is different from then to now? So here are my three tips for wine open-mindedness before we get on to the grocery store crap. Number one, try to understand and define wine at the regional and stylistic level. Get out of the New World habit of defining wine just by their grapes. That is one level too shallow. And unless you're not at all interested in wine, you just like you said, you want to know what you like when you go to a party or bar, but if you want any kind of level of advanced knowledge, even moderate knowledge, learn to identify things by both the region, style, and the grape. So, for instance, Pinot Noir, it's grape, great, but you should be able to understand the differences between Pinot Noir from France, Pinot Noir from California, and Pinot Noir from New Zealand, because they're all very different wine experiences, even though they're the exact same grape. Okay, it's the exact same varietal. The other thing, the next level past that, is to understand stylistic differences within a region that apply to the same grape. My most popular example here is California Chardonnay. California grows a lot of Chardonnay, but not all California Chardonnays are made the same way. They can be oaky, they can be buttery, they can be tropical, they can be acidic, and several combinations in between. Okay, so they're all the same varietal, but understand that these things aren't a monolith, and be aware of that, and that way you don't set up your judgment range to go, oh, I don't like California Chardonnays. Well, have you tried all the styles? Do you really say, have you really dived at? If that's true, great. But most of the students that I've found in my career have been, no, I just don't like the buttery oaky kind. Well, then don't drink the buttery oaky kind. How about I give you this? Tastes like pineapples and sunshine. Woo! Okay. So number 2, be willing to revisit wine regions or styles that you may have tried but didn't like in the past. Hey, generally speaking, if you tried it and liked it, you're going to be drinking it anyway. But go back to some places. This is what I'm trying to do here with Texas, and that is to say, I'm going to go revisit and see what things have changed. What's the state of the art now? What are the winemakers in this area doing now compared to then? Again, another life pro tip that goes along with this: having a changing opinion is not a character flaw. Okay, especially in the light of your own personal experiences and observations in a wildly changing world. If you go back and try that wine, you may not know that it's not the same thing it was 10 years ago. Give it another try. See if it's better now. See if you don't like it still, great. It's okay to be like, nope, I still don't like asparagus. That's fine. Or whatever the case may be in your particular wine and food world. And then tip number 3 is break out of your usual choices with regularity. Okay. At least once a month or every 3 to 4 bottles, I'd say, in whatever your rotation is, try either a new grape, a new region, or a new producer. So that is not that hard to do, but it's one of the things you'll find yourself, if you like wine and you're a casual wine drinker, you'll find yourself just buying the same thing over and over and over again. And that's not a bad way to live. You got good wine in your world, but if you're really looking to expand your wine journey, make an active effort to break the pattern every now and again. It's like turning the radio on to a new station. That's exactly what we're doing today with our grocery store grab. So look at that. I want to talk about going to Segway School and back. The grocery store grab is an example today of a brand new thing that I've never tried before, right? I am fortunate enough to do this for you guys most week in, week out, and so I'm constantly kind of doing that with the grocery store grab. But again, it's active effort, right? It's not about revisiting the same thing or hitting my. I could probably spend most of a year, 1 week at a time, showing you wines that I like and drink with at least some degree of regularity. That's not necessarily the goal here, right? You can seek other methods to see the stuff that I drink. Like follow me on Vivino if you want to see all the stuff we're drinking through. So, all right. So end rant. Keep an open mind. Free your mind, and your glass will follow. Don't let me hear you say I only drink, because that's the quick way to my shit list. So, all right, the grocery store grab then, without further ado. For those that are unfamiliar, the grocery store grab is our method of getting the best value per dollar for wines that are found at non-specialty and non-big box retailers. Many people in the world don't have access to a great wine store. Many may not shop at big box stores like Total Wine or Siegel's or Goody, or any one of whatever your particular region's large liquor stores are. You may be able to shop at the grocery store simply out of convenience and necessity. So that wine market can be particularly rocky, with a lot of decisions posted at you and a lot of marketing money thrown at you. So we want to do a label-focused analysis of wines to help new to wine drinkers search through the bullshit, get to good wines, and find fantastic things at usually reasonable value points. Most of our wines in the GSG run anywhere between the $5 to $15 to $25 range, right? Very reasonably priced wines. So what do we do? We mean label focused. Well, what we mean is not just is the picture pretty on the label. We want to know that the label communicates good, effective wine drinking information. Like, number 1, what's in the bottle? What type of grape is it? Where's it from? If it's a blend of grapes, what type of grapes are blended in and what percentages? The more specific the wine region, the better, if it's along the style. And then what does the wine taste like? One of the most important things I think that's missing in a lot of wine labels are flavor words that average people can understand. Not using wine terminology, but really speaking to the common person to say, oh, this wine tastes like A, B, C, D. If you want to get extra points on the grocery store grab, you'll also tell us about food pairings, good options for that. Although we're finding this as we've doing nearly a year of these, food pairings on wine table labels seem to be getting rarer and rarer, and when they do them, they tend to be very general or broad, not very helpful. However, websites are getting very good at carrying information, and one of the things I'm an advocate for is using their labeling to connect you to virtual information. Nearly everybody that drinks or wines, lives in this country, even most others, carries a personal computer in their pocket, and it is quite easy to get information into your hands if they simply would use something like their UPC code or a QR code to transmit you directly to your phone to say, here's all the information you want. Plus, it's updatable. So they get extra super bonus points if they're using augmented reality. But today's selection. Let me go over to the images. Today's selection is called Prophecy. This is Prophecy wine brand, and this wine is called The Traveler. This is their Pinot Noir from California. Now, this is the artwork provided by the website. The label on the front of this is slightly different. It just got a bar underneath that with their logo type, and it says Pinot Noir California 2018. Okay. Back of the label, where most of the information we care about is going to live, the back of the label is filled up with important information. Now it says Prophecy of the Traveler Pinot Noir. Again, that's usual. But they have the classic 2-paragraph format, and here's what it reads. At Prophecy Wines, our inspiration comes from the beauty of the harvest and the possibility of greatness in a glass. Wines are drawn from our premier global vineyard sites, individually selected to bear each of the varietal's defining characteristics. In other words, this is a typical marketing statement of why we're cool and why you should love me. Okay, but the second paragraph, this is where they did an excellent job. Prophecy Pinot Noir showcases the best of California. The wine is elegant and medium-bodied, with luscious layers of red cherry and raspberry, complemented by complex spice notes, leading to a velvety, smooth finish. That, ladies and gentlemen, is a great descriptor of what I want to see coming out of the glass, right? I now know what to expect when it comes to flavor, and we like that. Okay, so by the way, I love the label. There's actually a whole story on the website. I did not take time to read it because I don't want to influence before I do my review. But the fact is, I really do love the traveling jester and motley here. It's pretty kick-ass. So not only did they have a label that I said, ooh, that looks fun, it also had all the information I wanted on the back. So what grape it is, where it's from, flavor words. No food pairings, okay, those are for bonus points. No AR, again, bonus points. But I really like that flavor picture. It's one of the better ones I've seen in a while. They really dug into simple words that I can understand on what the flavor is. So let's find out if it lives up to its name. Now, we usually don't do a full, Guild of Sommeliers grid style review here, but what we are going to do is just to answer 3 main basic questions for the average viewer. And that is it well crafted, well executed? Is the wine well made, or is there a problem with the wine? Is it on style? If we know the place and time that the wine is made, for instance, this is a California Pinot Noir. There's a broad style we can kind of go with that. Notice that it says California, which means it's not necessarily sourced from any particular AVA or American viticultural area. That means we're not looking for regional hints that might give us a clue to where those grapes are from. It may mean that they source them from multiple areas, simply for their profitability reasons. By the way, as far as cost is concerned, this is an $18 wine at list price. That is actually $11 once you get past the club card credit type thing. So we're grading this as if it's an $11 Pinot Noir from Broad Space, California. Generic, affordable, good stuff. And then the third thing we ask is it worth the price tag? So we're aiming at $11 for that price tag, and we're going to see whether we think it's worth it. So color-wise, this has got a nice garnet color. It's very almost, actually even light, I would even say dark cranberry as it comes through. It is clear through the glass. It's got has that lighter red wine look to it and look and feel. From the smell, it definitely has a kind of cherry vanilla cola thing going on. What I would call the iconic California hot rod red Pinot Noir style. I'm a fan of this style particularly and personally, but the ripe red fruit certainly comes right up out of the glass and hits you in the face. That idea of raspberry that they're talking about, like I said, that kind of cherry soda thing going on. This is, I would say, very typically California Pinot Noir at this bulk price point. It's not nuanced. It's very, very assertive, but again, it is not. It's not hiding in the glass by any means. And then let's take a sip. Okay. Yeah. big red fruit. The tartness of the raspberry cranberry has just enough acidity to make our mouths water, just a hint. The oak is bringing in that vanilla-like flavor. I don't, at this price point, I would bet that they're probably planking their oak rather than actually oak aging. So the oak is pretty prominent, but it is not unpleasant in any way because it is jammed up full of cherries. So I find it, definitely approachable on the lower price point. Uh, it isn't particularly elegant or multi-layered. It does have that spice kind of finish, that cinnamony baking spice thing. Again, very likely getting it from New Oak staving when they're putting them in their tanks, or if they're producing an $11 Pinot Noir that's actually using real oak, I would color me surprised. But regardless, they're using oak to do that influence, and they're using it fairly judicious. Well, I would say just they're using it very purposefully. It is not light oak. If you do not like the flavor of oak at all, this is too much for you. If you ask me, this is pretty interestingly balanced and very drinkable. Um, is it well executed? Yeah, no flaws here, no break. It's not, they didn't turf it on any of the technical qualifications. It does not, again, I think it tastes like what it is. It has that lower, faster, easier to drink profile that they're aiming for. Is it on style? And I already said, it's got that hot rod red kind of profile for California, so 100%. And especially because they're not being hyper specific, they're not having to get, this isn't the difference between, say, a Carnero Chardonnay, a Russian River Chardonnay, or Pinot Noir, Russian River Pinot Noir, Carnero's Pinot Noir, or even, say, a Santa Lucia Highlands Pinot Noir, right? We don't have any of that nuance going in here. We're just going, I am roughly Pinot Noir like. The other interesting thing is this is a classic example of the borderline between what we call typicity in wine, where does the wine have enough origin taste so that you can figure out what grape it tastes like? Could you at least identify that this is Pinot Noir rather than, say, Merlot, Malbec, Syrah, Cabernet Sauvignon? By the color and by the flavor, I would say yes, you would actually pick the Pinot Noir out of the lineup, which is a good statement, especially at that price point. Then lastly, is it worth the price tag? Definitely. I would totally drink this at the same price point. I am not disappointed. In fact, I'm going to go see what the rest of the Prophecy's inexpensive wine lineup looks like. So you may see them coming back to the show. And one of the great things I think about how to try wines is go lateral, right? You find a brand that you like, something that tastes good, try everything else they make. Because if you like this, you're probably bound to like the winemaker's choices overall. So maybe some of their other varietals and styles you might enjoy as well. And I did notice there were quite a few more in the lineup. So I'm sure they've got a Cab, a Chard, a Rosé. Hopefully they've got something beyond those, because the kind of California four things that you make. Everybody makes a Chard, everybody makes a Cab. Pinot Noir is the third, and Rosé. Pinot Noir and Rosé would vie for third and fourth. Hopefully they will do something that's a little bit more esoteric. Now they did say global, so I'm wondering whether they have other wines that are from different regions around the world. This might be a very large wine conglomerate that's doing multiple sourcing, buying inexpensive grapes, using their buying power to keep the pricing low, right? And I may even go ahead and look up who really owns this. Is it a sub-brand of one of the big boys? Again, because I do not do prior research, that's not going to be part of the lineup. So, David Mary said the Prophecy Pinot Grigio is nice too. David Mary, do you know whether that Pinot Grigio is from Italy? Is it from France? Is it from California? Or is it New Zealand? All those places make Pinot Grigio to some degree. I'd certainly be interested there as to where their grape source is. One of the fun things, speaking of fun grape sources, like there's an example. I don't remember the winemaker's name at this moment, but there was a wine that I featured in my location series show many snows ago in Scarborough Renaissance Festival, where we had a Pinot Grigio that was genetically identical. In other words, they had used cloned vines, and they were from Veneto, Italy originally, and then they brought them to California as well, and they grew them in both places and produced two different wines under the same label, one under the Veneto, one under the California name. I forget which area of California it was. I want to say it was Lake County, but I could be wrong. Anyway, point is, it was great to see same winemaker, same genetic grape material, but very different soil profiles and just slightly different wines, like seeing non-identical twins. It was a really good example of why we drink wine from different places in the first place. Hence the location's name of the show. Anyhow, food pairings. One of the things I liked on their website. In fact, I'm going to go back to their website right now, real quick, so that I can share this with you guys. Um, when I was cruising through, just looking for the image, right? They've got their tasting notes are very well featured on their website, right? They've got tasting notes of cherry, raspberry, strawberries, and brown spice. They've got a pairs with section. They've got a spectrum of dry to sweet and light to full bodied, and then it's the little meters, right, of where they are on the scale. And then they've got serving recommendations. The examples for this one are turkey, cod, Swiss cheese, and vegetable stir fry. Then, of course, they also link to their Vivino profile to give you actual real-time and customer source reviews, which, of course, they will receive one from me sooner or later when I get this done. So, anyway, really kind of cool stuff. I'm definitely excited to explore. Oh, yeah, so here they've got a Marlborough Sauvignon Blanc. They've got a French Rosé, which looks at a Provençal style. A buttery Chardonnay, very carefully named California buttery Chardonnay, right? A Pinot Grigio that says that's from Venezia, della Venezia, and then a California Washington Red Blend. Very interesting. And then California Cab. So yeah, so they're picking up grapes from all over the joint. Very nice. Very nice. All right. Any other questions, comments, rash political statements about keeping an open mind for wine? What was the thing that fooled you in your wine world? I want you guys to tell me. Either go ahead and ask me in the chat here, but of course, if you come back later and put your comments in the chat, it really does help the channel. So don't be afraid. Yeah. So there you go, David, Mary, Delivezzi, Deli. Man, double D-E double E in Italian. Dei Venezia. So yeah, but tell me about some of the wines that you might have changed your mind on, things you've come back to, anything in your wine world like that. I'd love to hear about it in the comments over on YouTube once this is published. So so I want to review coming soons. We've got Wine and Cheese 9 on Friday, the 29th. That's this Friday. Then we've got White Dessert Wines on Thursday, April 15th. Will It Blend on April 29th. That's the Bordeaux edition. Okay, so those are the next 3 online tastings. We have a live tasting in Dallas on the 16th for Old World Wines. We're going to do 5 wines. We're going to do one. We're going to do we're going to do 2 wines from France. Basically, we're going to learn to taste with one, and then we're going to do one major region. This is really hard to choose, by the way. This is, like picking your favorite Playboy Playmate. It's just impossible. We're going to do one from France, one from Germany, one from Spain, one from Italy. I could probably do this show like 5 times each and still hit major regions from everyone that most people are heard of. But it'll be a fun exploration where we just kind of hit the mountaintop highlights of each of the old world regions. So it's going to be very fun. Anyway, so we've got that. And then I said Scarborough Renaissance Festival is coming up. So that's going to be of a lot of fun. Cannot wait. See you guys and do some shows. The listings of weekends for those are listed on my website on wineshark.com under the @SRF page, and you can of course check their website for srfestival.com. So don't be shy there. But all right, any other questions before I get wrapped up? I know I'm on a delay, so I'm going to drink some wine while I wait. I'll know when I do this that you guys have heard me. So. Aha! Okay, we're back. Now I got the difference between the delay. So now I know you've heard me. Now I have to wait for the thing to catch up. So there's like an extra delay while I wait for you to maybe actually type. So weird. All of this so that I can share images with you. It's kind of funky to me, but hey, I think we're doing it the right thing. Yeah, so tell me in your comments about your revisiting and keeping an open mind wine, what the new brands that you found, something new you've tried recently, whatever it is. Let me know. If you like what we're doing, like and subscribe to the channel. We're holding on to our 100 viewer number, which is great, which means sooner we can get our custom URL from YouTube. And then, of course, you'll have the special Flynn Markley show, which it'll be odd because it'll actually can probably take place during the festival. So, hey, good for me, fun for me. Anyway, but again, like, subscribe, share with a wine-loving friend. If you really like what we're doing, you should check us out over on Patreon. There's detailed additional content. We do all the tastings that I mentioned here are all recorded and then archived, so you can go back and see them if you didn't get to attend the Zoom online tasting, and it includes full tasting notes, links to maps, resources, other great stuff. So it's a lot of fun and a really good value. Plus, there's a couple of other benefits. You get discounts and preview tickets to a few things, plus additional wine tasting notes for all the stuff we do. So we'd really love it if you support us over on Patreon as well. So until next time, guys, I wanted to say thank you guys very much, and I hope you guys enjoy your wine week. See some of you guys on Friday night. We'll drink some wine and eat some cheese. But until next time, I have been your wine shark. Cheers. Oh, so good.